up everybody? Thanks for joining us today. And if you like this video, make sure to drop a like down below, subscribe to the channel, turn on those post notifications, and make sure you share this with your family and friends across the world.
Now the boy Samuel was ministering to the Lord under Eli. The word of the Lord was rare in those days. Visions were not widespread. At that time, Eli, whose eyesight had begun to grow dim so that he could not see, was laying down in his room. The lamp of God had not yet gone out, and Samuel was lying down in the temple of the Lord, where the ark of God was. Then the Lord called, "Samuel, Samuel," and he said, "Here I am," and ran to Eli and said, "Here I am, for you called me." But he said, "I did not call, lie down again." So he went and lay down. The Lord called again, "Samuel." Samuel got up and went to Eli and said, "Here I am, for you called me." But he said, "I did not call, my son, lie down again." Now Samuel did not yet know the Lord, and the word of the Lord had not yet been revealed to him. The Lord called Samuel again a third time. And he got up and went to Eli and said, "Here I am, for you called me." Then Eli perceived that the Lord was calling the boy. Therefore Eli said to Samuel, "Go lie down, and if he calls you, you shall say, 'Speak, Lord, for your servant is listening.'" So Samuel went and lay down in his place. We have a situation here in 1 Samuel where we are introduced to a period where God was not speaking to his people. The first verse of this chapter lets us know that God's voice was not being heard and people were not receiving vision from the Lord. Now, that is a significant statement all by itself because we're talking about the Lord here, who has been very active in communicating with his creation pretty much since the beginning of the Bible. We find him talking to Adam and Eve, and then he continues speaking through the line of people that he has designated as the folks that he is going to call his people, all the way up through where we have Jacob, who then becomes renamed Israel, and he has his 12 sons. And we have the Lord who is speaking to and through his people. Then they end up in a period and a time in Exodus where the Pharaoh has forgotten. This new Pharaoh doesn't know anything about Joseph. Joseph has been forgotten and all the things that he's done. And the children of Israel are multiplying at a rate that makes the Pharaoh uncomfortable, so much so that he subjects them to slavery. And they cried for hundreds of years. They were crying for the Lord, and the Lord then sent Moses in to free them. And now here we are. We've moved forward, but God has once again become quiet. He has not spoken to his people. And we have Eli here he lives at what we'll call the temple of the Lord. And Eli is the one who is supposed to be close to God. But Eli has two boys who are running around town, not honoring who God is, not honoring who their father is. And Eli actually spoke a word from the Lord over Hannah when she was at the festival, and she was out crying because she could not bear children, and her sister Peninnah was teasing her and taunting her because she was having children and Hannah could not. Now Elkanah loved Hannah more than he did Peninnah, and Peninnah was certainly attempting to continue to have children to try to win her husband's love. But as Hannah was crying, Eli came up to her and told her, asked her why she was drunk and quit being so drunk around the house of the Lord. And Hannah let him know that she had not been drinking, she was not drunk. She was crying because she had a petition before the Lord. And Eli spoke clearly on behalf of God and told her that her petition would be granted and that in a year she would have a child. And so what Hannah did was she had the child, and because she had bargained with the Lord that if she was able to have a child, she would give the child back to the Lord, and that's what she did. So when she had Samuel and she had weaned him, she sent him to live with Eli. And again, we find here that God was not speaking very much, and there were hardly any visions around to be spoken of. And so here we have Eli is laying down in the bed, and so is Samuel. Now Samuel is lying in the bed, and the Lord calls out to him, and the Bible is careful to let us know that Samuel did not know the Lord just yet, that the Lord had not been revealed to Samuel just yet. And so we have Samuel here hearing the voice of God, but he doesn't know who's calling him. Now he runs over to Eli and disturbs Eli in where he's laying down. It disturbs Eli, and he says, "Here I am, you called me." And Eli says, "No, I didn't call you. Go back and lay down." Now I want us to pause right here for just a second, because what we find here is we find that Samuel and Eli seem to be the only two in the temple. There's no mention of anybody else. Samuel's not running to anyone else to try to figure out if they called him. That he went straight to Eli, and Eli told him to go back to bed. Now, I want us to understand something, that God called Samuel. He called his name out. He's speaking to Samuel, even though Samuel doesn't know who he is yet. God is calling out to him. He's getting his attention. And I want you to know that God still speaks, and he speaks to his children. God is ready to be heard. But all too often, we've got all these other voices that we're listening to in our society, and we are unable to distinguish and to discern God's voice. And so what Samuel was doing right here was he was going to a familiar voice, the one that had been teaching him, the one who's been raising him. No doubt that Samuel understood why he was where he was. I'm sure his mother had told him before she weaned him and took him to the temple why she was doing this. It had been fully explained to him that he was a child of the Lord, and that he was going to be going back to God. And certainly if God had not been revealed to him yet, I'm sure Samuel was wondering who this God really is. And so, But we have a problem today where we're not even listening for God anymore. We are listening to all of the people on the news, these political pundits. We're listening to doctors who may not even say that they believe in God. We're listening to our friends who may not talk about God first. We're listening to the voices of sportscasters, and we're listening to the voices of activists. We're listening to voices all over the place, and the one voice we seem to not be looking for or listening for is the voice of God. Now, it seems like when Samuel first went to Eli, Eli had not yet discerned that God was calling Samuel. And I believe I know why. It's because the voice of God had been scarce. It just hadn't been around. It wasn't something that was very common. And so what did Samuel do? He went and laid down. And then Samuel heard his name again, and he jumps up and he runs back to Eli. And he says, "Here I am, you called me." So Eli says to Samuel, "Look, I didn't call you. Go back and lay down." This is time number 2, where Samuel has run into Eli's room and said, "Here I am, you called me." And Eli still hasn't quite put it together what's going on. Certainly Eli might be a little bothered by this, because he's like, "I'm not calling him. Why does he keep running in here?" But he sends him back to his room. And certainly by this point, Eli is beginning to think, what is going on? Who could be calling him? He seems to be very certain that his name is being called. And I believe that after Samuel left that second time, Eli began to put it together, that the Lord was calling this young man. And so when Eli heard his name again, he came running back a third time. And this time Eli said to him, "If he calls you again, if you hear the voice again, make yourself available." Now, this is something that I think we really need to make sure that we are concentrating on in this day and age. Because all too often, I believe God is calling on us. He's calling our name. He's seeking those that belong to him. But all too often, we're not making ourselves available to him. We're not listening for what we can do for him. We are telling him what we want him to do for us. And we seem to have it a little bit backwards at this time. We seem to have the order out of the way, where we believe that God is calling our name in order to tell us that he wants to give us something, instead of understanding that what we're supposed to be doing and how we are supposed to be living is we are supposed to be trying to follow his plan, because his plan is the only one that really matters. I have a cell phone, as many of us do, and I don't mind telling you I use AT&T. They didn't pay me for that plug. That's just who I use. I use AT&T, and I have DirecTV as well. I'm not trying to put all my business out there, but I hope this makes sense in just a second. Every now and then I get a message on my phone. It's a voicemail that I often get on my phone that they thank me for being a DirecTV valued customer. And then they tell me that they're calling me to let me know that I can receive so much percentage off of my monthly bill if I just call the number back. They call me and tell me, oh, you're eligible for this certain percentage off of your DirecTV bill. Just call us back. Now it sounds wonderful, but I don't know of any company that is going to call you and tell you that you can save money, especially if you're paying your bill on time, all the time, and they're making money out. They're not calling you up to say, hey, if you'd like to save some money, give us a call. That's not how they do. Now, you may be a very conscientious customer, and you may be one of those that call in with the deals, and you may want to make sure you're getting the absolute lowest price. You may try to negotiate and do things like that. But my point is, the company is not going to call you and tell you to keep some of your money. They are in business to make money. They're not going to give away money. They're in business to make money. They need every dollar out of you they can get. They try to get you more services. Now, if they were calling me to tell me that, I would believe, it'd be a little bit more believable if they were calling to tell me that they had some extra services that they'd like to sell me. I might believe it was them on that particular front. But if they're calling telling me that I'm going to save so much money, I don't believe that. You can go to Bed Bath & Beyond right now, and if you don't have your 20% discount coupon in your hand, they're not just giving it to you for the most part. Every now and then you may run into somebody who has one sitting around, but my point is, businesses are in business to make money. So what does that have to do with what we're talking about here? Well, I need for you to understand that when the Lord is working in our lives and moving in our lives and calling our name, he's not calling our name to try to figure out what we want. As a matter of fact, God already knows what we want. When God is calling our name, what we're supposed to do is slow down enough to try to figure out what it is he's getting ready to tell us. Because if he's calling out our name, he's got a job for us to do, or he's trying to tell us something before we get somewhere. He's trying to prepare the way for us. So when you hear God calling your name, it is not for him to give you something. It is for him to ask you to do something for him. And we ought to be looking forward to God calling our name so that we might be able to do more for his kingdom. That's what Eli was trying to get Samuel to do. Listen for the voice and then tell that voice. Tell the Lord, your servant is listening. And so my brothers and sisters, I'm asking you right now, if you find yourself looking for God and you think you're close to him, you feel God's presence, instead of telling him what you want, you ask God what he wants. You line up with his plan. You make sure you're doing what he asks, because if we do what the Lord asks, we will see him move in mighty and miraculous ways, because he's still performing miracles. He's a miracle worker. So my brothers and sisters, listen for his voice and then ask him what you can do. God bless you. God keep you is our prayer.
Thank you for joining us again today. But before we leave, I will ask you to like this video, subscribe to the channel, share this with family and friends across the world. And if you are led to donate to this ministry, there's a link in the description below.